The medical clinic on Refuge Station wasn't much to look at. A converted storage bay with second-hand equipment and walls that still bore the scars of the station's violent past. But for Dr. Myra Calvin, it was everything. It was hope for the thousands of refugees who'd fled war, persecution, and poverty from across the galaxy, washing up on Refuge Station with nothing but the desperate belief that somewhere, somehow, they could start over. Today, that hope was dying. Myra stared at the notice displayed on her data pad, her crystalline blue skin paling to an almost translucent shade. Her delicate antennae drooped with despair as she read the words for the third time, hoping they might somehow change. Notice of eviction outstanding debt. 47,000 credits payment required within 72 hours. Failure to pay will result in immediate closure and asset seizure. 47,000 credits. It might as well have been 47 million. The clinic had been operating on donated supplies and volunteer labor for months, treating refugees who had no credits, no insurance, no way to pay. Myra had taken loans to keep the doors open, hoping that eventually the Galactic Refugee Relief Fund would approve her grant application. They'd denied it yesterday. Insufficient infrastructure, the rejection letter said. Unable to demonstrate long-term sustainability. Unable to demonstrate sustainability because she was too busy saving lives to fill out endless paperwork. Dr. Calvin, Nurse Plixvin poked her head into the office, her Thorian scales showing stress gray. The Ortesh family is here for their daughter's follow-up, and we have 3 more walk-ins waiting. Myra closed her eyes, fighting back tears. Tell them I'll be right there. She had 72 hours to find 47,000 credits or the clinic would close. The refugees who depended on her would have nowhere else to go. Station Medical charged fees no refugee could afford, and the nearest charitable facility was 3 systems away. 72 hours to save everything she'd built. She had no idea how. Michael Torres noticed the clinic during his 3rd day on Refuge Station. He'd come to the station on business. His cargo ship, the Resilient Hope, was supposed to pick up a load of recycled components for delivery to the manufacturing colonies. But the shipment was delayed, leaving him with time to kill and a tendency to explore places other traders avoided. Refuge Station had a reputation. It was where the galaxy's unwanted ended up: refugees, asylum seekers, people fleeing violence or persecution from 100 different worlds. It wasn't dangerous, exactly, but it was desperate. The kind of place most traders passed through quickly, avoiding eye contact and keeping their credit chips hidden. Michael had grown up in places like this. Border towns in Arizona where migrants arrived with nothing, hoping for safety and finding only more struggle. He recognized the look in people's eyes, that combination of exhaustion and stubborn hope that refused to die even when every reasonable person would have given up. So when he saw the small medical clinic with its handwritten sign offering free care for all species, he stopped to look closer. Through the grimy window, he could see the waiting room packed with people. A Thorian mother holding a sick child, an elderly Vexter leaning heavily on a cane, a group of young Luminars, their glow dimmed by malnutrition, and moving between them, a Cerulean doctor with blue skin and gentle hands, checking vitals, offering reassurance, radiating exhaustion. Michael watched her work for 10 minutes before he walked inside. The waiting room went quiet when he entered. Humans weren't common on Refuge Station. Earth was wealthy enough that its citizens rarely ended up as refugees. The patients watched him warily, clearly expecting either a government official bringing bad news or a criminal looking for easy targets. Michael walked to the reception desk, where a tired-looking Thorian nurse was trying to manage a waiting list twice as long as the day's available appointments. "Hi," he said. "I'm not a patient. I'm a cargo hauler, and I noticed your clinic. I was wondering if there's anything you need, supplies, equipment, anything I might be able to source through my network." The nurse, whose nameplate read Plixvin, stared at him like he'd spoken an alien language. "You want to donate supplies? If you need them, yeah." Plixvin's scales shifted from gray to cautious green. "We need everything. Medicine, bandages, diagnostic equipment, power cells for our medical scanner. But we can't pay." "I'm not asking you to pay," Michael interrupted gently. "I'm asking what you need." Before Plixvin could respond, a door opened and the Sarulan doctor emerged, clearly about to call the next patient. She stopped when she saw Michael, her antennae twitching with curiosity and suspicion. "Can I help you?" she asked carefully. "Maybe," Michael said. "I'm Michael Torres, independent trader. I was hoping to talk to whoever runs this clinic about supply needs." "I run the clinic, Dr. Myra Calvin." She studied him with eyes that had clearly learned not to trust easy promises. "Why would a trader want to donate to a refugee clinic?" "Because I grew up in communities that depended on clinics like this," Michael replied honestly. "My mom was a nurse who ran a free clinic in Arizona for migrants crossing the border. I spent half my childhood in waiting rooms that looked a lot like this one. I know how much free clinics matter and how little support they get." Something in Myra's expression shifted, not quite trust but recognition, someone who understood. "We appreciate the offer, Mr. Torres, but what we need most isn't supplies. We need—" She trailed off, clearly debating how much to reveal to a stranger. "Credits?" Michael guessed. Myra laughed bitterly. 47,000 credits to be precise. We're 3 days from eviction. Unless you have that in your cargo hold, I don't think you can help us." Michael was quiet for a moment, his mind racing. 47,000 credits wasn't nothing, but it wasn't impossible either. His cargo ship was worth 3 times that. His current contract would pay 20,000. He had some savings, not 47,000, but enough to make a dent. "Can I see your financial records?" he asked. Both Myra and Plixvin stared at him. "Why?" Myra asked. "Because I might be able to help. But I need to understand exactly what you're dealing with." Myra hesitated, then made a decision. "Come to my office." Over the next 2 hours, Michael went through the clinic's records with the careful attention of someone who'd managed tight budgets his entire adult life. The story they told was both heartbreaking and familiar. A good person trying to do impossible work with inadequate resources, slowly drowning in debt while helping everyone who walked through the door. "You're treating about 200 patients a week," Michael observed. "Most free of charge. Your supply costs are actually pretty reasonable. You're getting good deals from donors. The problem is the facility costs. Rent, power, maintenance, that's what's killing you. Station management won't negotiate," Myra said tiredly. They say charitable operations don't get special rates, pay or leave. Michael studied the numbers, an idea forming. What if you didn't have to leave, but you also didn't have to pay the full rate? How? Give me 24 hours, Michael said. I need to make some calls and pull some strings. Don't make any commitments to close yet. Myra's antennae drooped. Mr. Torres, I appreciate your concern, but I've been trying to solve this problem for months. I don't see how. Do you trust me? Michael interrupted. I don't know you. Fair. But do you trust that someone who grew up watching his mother fight to keep a free clinic open might actually understand what you're dealing with and might have ideas you haven't thought of? Myra looked at him for a long moment. Then, 24 hours. Michael spent that night working his network. He called every contact he'd made in 15 years of independent trading, merchants who owed him favors, station administrators who appreciated his reliability, even competitors who respected his reputation. The solution he assembled wasn't elegant, but it was effective. A medical supply company on the Core Worlds agreed to donate 10,000 credits worth of equipment in exchange for good publicity and tax write-offs. A humanitarian organization Michael's mother had worked with decades ago contributed 5,000 credits when Michael explained the situation. 3 other independent traders pooled together another 5,000 after Michael put out a call on the Traders Guild network. But that was only 20,000, still 27,000 short. Michael stared at his personal account balance, 28,000 credits. Everything he'd saved over 2 years of careful budgeting, his emergency fund, his safety net. The money he'd planned to use someday to buy a second ship and expand his business. He thought about his mother, who died poor because she'd given everything to keep her clinic running. Thought about the refugees in that waiting room who had nowhere else to go. Thought about Dr. Calvin trying to save the galaxy one patient at a time with no money, no support, and no hope. He transferred 27,000 credits to the clinic's account. When Michael arrived at the clinic the next morning, Myra was checking messages at her desk, her antennae drooping with exhaustion. She looked like she'd been up all night trying to figure out how to tell her patients the clinic was closing. Dr. Calvin, Michael said from the doorway, check your account. Myra pulled up her financial interface, then froze. Her antennae shot straight up in shock. This says we have 47,000 credits. That's impossible. There must be an error. No error. 20,000 from donations I arranged through my network. 27,000 from me personally. Myra stared at him. From you personally? You gave us 27,000 credits. Why would you? She struggled for words. That's everything, isn't it, your savings? Yeah, Michael admitted. Why? The word came out as almost a whisper. You don't know me, you don't know these people. Why would you give everything you have to save a clinic on a refugee station? Michael was quiet for a moment. When I was 12, my mom's clinic almost closed. She couldn't pay rent, couldn't afford supplies. I watched her cry in our kitchen, trying to figure out how to tell patients she couldn't help them anymore. He met Myra's eyes. A stranger saved her. A traveling doctor who happened to be passing through heard about the situation and wrote a check, just like that. No conditions, no expectations. He said someone had done the same for him once and he was passing it forward. What happened to your mother? She kept the clinic open for 20 more years, treated thousands of people who had nowhere else to go. She died 5 years ago, exhausted and broke and happy because she'd spent her life doing work that mattered. Michael smiled. That stranger's check didn't just save a clinic. It saved everyone my mom treated for the next 2 decades. All because one person decided that sometimes hope needs practical action, not just good wishes. Myra's eyes glistened with tears. I can't accept this. It's too much. You already accepted it, Michael pointed out gently. The transfer is complete. The debt is paid. The clinic stays open. Now you just have to decide what to do with this second chance. Why me? Why this clinic? There are hundreds of others across the galaxy. Because I was here, because you needed help. Because when you see someone drowning, you don't stand on the shore debating whether they deserve to be saved. You throw them a rope. Michael shrugged. My mom taught me that. Now I'm teaching you. Myra was crying now, her antennae trembling. I don't know how to repay this. Pass it forward, Michael said simply. Someday, when you're able, help someone else who's drowning. That's the only repayment that matters. Over the following weeks, Michael found himself returning to Refuge Station regularly, even when it wasn't on his shipping route. He told himself it was to check on the clinic, to make sure his investment was being used wisely. But really, it was because watching Myra work, watching the clinic save lives, reminded him why his mother had given everything to her work. Some things were worth more than money. He started bringing supplies from his cargo runs, donated medical equipment he'd sourced at low cost, food for the waiting room, materials for repairs. Other traders heard what he'd done and started contributing too, creating an informal network of suppliers who kept the clinic stocked. 3 months after his donation, Myra called a meeting in her tiny office. Michael arrived to find her glowing, literally, her cerulean skin luminescent with emotion. I wanted to tell you first, she said. The Galactic Refugee Relief Fund approved our grant application. They said news of the local community support, specifically the extraordinary donation from the trading network, demonstrated sustainable local investment. They're giving us 200,000 credits over 3 years. Michael felt his breath catch. That's incredible. You're secure. You can expand, hire staff, upgrade equipment. We can do more than survive. We can actually thrive. Myra's antennae vibrated with joy. Because of you, because you stepped in when we had no money, no hope, and no future. I just gave you time, Michael protested. You did the rest. You gave us more than time. You gave us proof that we mattered, that someone cared enough to sacrifice for strangers. Myra pulled out a data pad. I've been working on something. A foundation, the TORS Foundation for Refugee Medical Care. Funded by the clinic's surplus, donations, and grants. Its mission is to do for other clinics what you did for us, provide emergency funding to keep them open while they secure long-term support. Michael stared at the foundation documents bearing his name. Myra, I can't. This is. Your mother would be proud, Myra said quietly. You took what she taught you and made it bigger, made it sustainable. Made it something that will save not just one clinic but dozens, hundreds eventually. Michael felt tears in his eyes. His mother had died with nothing but the knowledge that she'd helped people. Now her philosophy would be immortalized in a foundation helping clinics across the galaxy. She would be proud, he agreed softly. The tour's foundation grew beyond anything Michael imagined. Within a year, it had saved 8 clinics from closure. Within 3 years, 23. Stories spread across the galaxy. The human who gave everything to save strangers, who proved that hope needed practical action, who built something beautiful from a moment of radical generosity. But Michael never forgot what started it. A desperate doctor with no money and no hope, trying to do good in an indifferent galaxy. Sometimes all it took was one person willing to step in, to say, "I see you, and you matter," and to prove it with action instead of words. His mother had taught him that love meant sacrifice. Myra taught him that sacrifice could echo across the stars, saving people he'd never meet in places he'd never see. And that was worth every credit.